What if Luffy was born in the same era as Goldie Roger? And to make things more interesting, what if he were Garp's brother? How would these changes affect the events at God Valley? Well, to begin, Luffy had always been different from his older brother Garp. While Garp was driven by a clear sense of justice and the ambition to rise through the ranks of the Marines, Luffy was more free-spirited, never one to be tied down by rules or authority. Even as children, they trained together relentlessly, pushing each other beyond their limits in the mountains and seas of their homeland. Garp was always the one to take things seriously, determined to one day become a Marine and fight for the ideals of justice. Luffy, on the other hand, fought simply for the thrill of it, loving the sensation of battle and the raw strength it granted him. Despite his reluctance to be bound to any organization, his bond with Garp remained unshakable. So when Garp enlisted in the Marines at 22, Luffy followed suit, if only to stay by his brother's side. Their rise within the Marines was meteoric. Through innate skill, unwavering determination, and a near-impulsive disregard for their own limits, the two brothers forged their status as formidable fighters. Garp's commitment to duty rendered him a perfect Marine, whereas Luffy's erratic behavior turned him into a disruptive force among them. Together, they defeated pirate crews, brought lawbreakers to justice, and gained both admiration and dread from those around them. Although his methods were unconventional, Luffy's skill was undeniable. He was an unrelenting force, possessing strength that matched even the most experienced warriors. However, as Garp thrived in the structured environment of the Marines, Luffy began to feel increasingly at odds with it. When Garp met a woman he loved and had a son, Dragon, Luffy became an ever-present figure in the child's life. He was not merely an uncle, but a mentor, taking Dragon under his wing and training him in combat. He saw in Dragon a sharp mind, one that questioned the world rather than blindly accepting it. Luffy encouraged this, pushing Dragon to think beyond the confines of Marine doctrine. But while he found joy in teaching his nephew, his frustrations with the Marines only deepened. Over time, Luffy's disappointment with the organization reached its peak. He had always felt uneasy, but now he was furious. He observed the dishonesty lying hidden beneath the surface, the duplicity of those who professed to advocate for justice, yet acted out of their own self-interest. He could not endure the unquestioning submission required by superiors, nor the way power was used not to safeguard the innocent, but to reinforce the dominance of the world government. Repeatedly, he clashed with his superiors, questioning orders and challenging decisions. What had once been simple defiance turned into full-blown rebellion. His conflicts with commanding officers grew in both frequency and intensity, and it became evident to many that Luffy was no longer someone they could control. His position in the Marines was becoming more uncertain, and rumors of his growing discontent circulated among the troops. Some viewed him as a dangerous risk, while others respected his unwavering beliefs. However, for Luffy, the decision was becoming evident. He was never meant to be confined by an organization that prioritized compliance over honesty. The moment was approaching when he would need to choose between remaining in chains or leaving to forge his own path. The task that would change Luffy's life forever began like any other, an order from the higher-ups. The mission to retrieve the Devil Fruit had been shrouded in the usual justifications of justice and duty, but Luffy sensed something darker lurking beneath the surface. At 28, he had long since grown disillusioned with the Marines, yet he still followed orders, perhaps out of habit, or perhaps because a part of him still clung to the remnants of loyalty he once held. This time, however, the mission was different. It was led by none other than Elder Saint Jaygarsha Saturn, a figure whose mere presence radiated an oppressive authority. Unlike the officers Luffy had clashed with before, Saturn was a being of terrifying power, his aura filled with an ancient, otherworldly dread. The village they were sent to was small, unremarkable on the surface, but it harbored a devil fruit that the world government desperately wanted. The Marines surrounded the settlement with ruthless efficiency, but what unfolded next shattered any remnants of Luffy's fragile allegiance. Without hesitation, Saturn ordered the slaughter of the villagers, not out of necessity, but as a show of dominance. His tone was tranquil, nearly aloof, while innocent lives were extinguished under the iron resolve of the Marines. Luffy's fists shook, not from fear, but from anger, a fury he could no longer contain. With a shout that pierced the chaos, Luffy sprang into motion. His hands, toughened by years of rigorous training, slammed into his fellow Marines with bone-breaking power. His movements were a whirlwind of sheer strength and precision, each blow driven by the rage igniting within him. He seized the Devil Fruit in the midst of the chaos, holding it firmly as if it represented his entire defiance. But it wasn't the Marines that truly tested him. It was Saturn. The Elder moved with an unnatural grace. His transformation into a monstrous bull-spider hybrid was as seamless as it was horrifying. Dark, flaming smoke coiled around his shoulders, and his massive, horned form loomed like a nightmare given flesh. His face, though twisted by the transformation, retained enough humanity to be recognizable, making his atrocities all the more grotesque. Luffy charged, his fists meeting the beast's monstrous limbs in a clash of brute strength and unyielding will. But Saturn was no ordinary opponent. His immortality and regenerative abilities made him an unrelenting force, shrugging off blows that would have crippled any other. His awakened form radiated malice, the dark flames flickering like the very embodiment of death. Luffy fought with everything he had, his body battered and bloodied, yet he refused to yield. The ground quaked beneath their battle, craters forming where fists met the Elder's limbs. Saturn's Supreme King Haki surged like a tidal wave, its oppressive force nearly suffocating. It wasn't just strength, strength, Saturn's will sought to crush Luffy's very spirit. Despite his indomitable resolve, Luffy was overwhelmed. A devastating blow from Saturn's massive limb sent him hurtling through the air, his battered body crashing into the jagged cliffs bordering the village. Gravity claimed him next, pulling him into the cold, unforgiving embrace of the ocean below. Darkness swallowed him whole, the weight of defeat heavier than the water dragging him down. When Luffy awoke, he was washed ashore on an unfamiliar island, his body broken, but his spirit still flickering with defiance. The devil fruit, somehow still with him, rested beside his battered form. Driven by a mix of desperation and instinct, he bit into the strange, bitter fruit. The taste was vile, but the transformation was immediate. His body felt different, lighter, more flexible, as if the very nature of his being had changed. He had consumed the Gomu Gomu no Mi, and with it came the power to stretch and contort beyond human limits. Alone in the island's wilderness, Luffy adapted to his new abilities. The beasts that roamed the land became both his adversaries and his teachers. He fought relentlessly, honing his powers through sheer necessity, mastering the elasticity of his body with the same ferocity he once dedicated to his fists. His punches now carried an added snap, his reach extended beyond imagination, and his resilience grew alongside his strength. Time lost meaning as he trained, each day a blur of battles and self-discovery. The island was both his prison and his crucible, forging him into something new, something more. He was no longer the marine who blindly followed orders, nor the man crushed beneath the weight of Saturn's power. He was Luffy, reborn through fire and fury, waiting for the day a ship would dock on the island and carry him back to the world he had left behind. When that day came, he would return not as a soldier, but as a force destined to carve his own path, free from the chains of his past. The day he finally left the island, boarding a ship that docked on its rugged shores, marked the birth of a new chapter. Luffy had discarded the final traces of his past life as a marine, fully embracing the freedom that the ocean provided. His charm and power captivated people from diverse backgrounds, all drawn by the intense spark of resolve in his gaze and the limitless energy he radiated. His crew, a diverse assembly united by loyalty and shared aspirations, sailed under a banner that symbolized an insatiable desire for freedom. Luffy's legend grew with each battle. He clashed with notorious pirates and formidable marine forces alike, his reputation spreading like wildfire across the Grand Line. His rubber body, honed through brutal training and tempered by countless skirmishes, became both shield and weapon. Yet it wasn't just his devil fruit powers that made him formidable. It was his indomitable will, the refusal to kneel before any force that sought to chain him down. Fate, however, had one more cruel twist in store. On a war-torn battlefield, amid the chaos of clashing blades and roaring cannon fire, Luffy came face to face with his past, his brother, Garp. The years had etched lines of experience into Garp's face, but the familiar, fierce gleam in his eyes remained unchanged. Garp's heart swelled with a mixture of joy and sorrow at the sight of his brother alive, standing tall amidst the chaos. He extended an offer, not just to return to the Marines, but to reclaim the bond they had shared. But Luffy, with a heart now belonging solely to the sea, refused. His path no longer aligned with the rigid justice Garp upheld. The rejection ignited a storm. Garp's expression hardened, the Marine hero unwilling to let his brother drift further into the abyss of piracy. Words failed where fists spoke louder. Their battle erupted with an intensity that shook the very ground beneath them. Garp's punches, like meteors, crashed against Luffy's rubber form with devastating force, each blow carrying the weight of both duty and brotherly love. Luffy retaliated with the fierce elasticity of his Gomu Gomu no Mi powers, his fists stretching and snapping with bone-shattering impact. Despite his strength, Luffy found himself overwhelmed. Garp's mastery of haki, honed over decades, pierced through Luffy's defenses. Blow after blow left Luffy battered, his body screaming in protest. Yet, amid the pain and blood, something within him stirred, a dormant power clawing its way to the surface. As Garp prepared to deliver what he believed would be the final blow, Luffy's will refused to break. His heartbeat thundered, a wild rhythm that resonated through his very soul. In that pivotal moment, Luffy's powers awakened. His body transformed, taking on the surreal, cartoonish form of Gear 5. His rubber stretched beyond conventional limits, his aura radiating an overwhelming force. White flames danced around him, and his laughter echoed like a force of nature. Their haki collided, waves of Conqueror's haki shattering the sky, splitting clouds, and leveling the battlefield around them. The fight raged on, each brother pushing the other to their absolute limits. Garp's relentless power met Luffy's newfound freedom, their fists speaking of years lost and bonds tested. In the end, Luffy emerged victorious, but only by the narrowest of margins. Both men collapsed to the ground, bloodied and bruised, their breaths ragged but hearts full. Silence settled over them, broken only by the sound of the wind carrying away the remnants of their battle. Garp laughed softly, a sound filled with pride and bittersweet acceptance. Luffy, his face bruised but smiling smiling wide, looked at his brother with a fierce, unwavering gaze. With the sky above them, vast and endless, he declared his next dream, one that burned brighter than ever before. He would conquer the Grand Line. As the years passed, Luffy's name echoed across the seas, a pirate whose legend grew with each battle, each conquest, and each island touched by his indomitable spirit. His crew, forged through hardship and bound by unwavering loyalty, became a formidable force, challenging both the world government and rival pirate crews alike. Yet amidst the vast ocean and the countless pirates that sailed its waters, one name constantly stood as both a challenge and a mirror to Luffy's own ambitions: Gol D. Roger. The first clash between Luffy and Roger occurred on the waters near Sabaody Archipelago, where their crews crossed paths amidst a fierce pursuit by the Marines. Luffy, with his mastery of Gear 5, unleashed his rubber abilities in wild, unpredictable ways, while Roger's overwhelming haki and swordsmanship carved through the chaos like a tempest. Their conqueror's haki clashed, splitting the very sky above them, the sheer force sending shockwaves across the sea. Neither emerged as the clear victor, but both left the battlefield with a burning desire for a rematch. As their paths crossed, time and again, their battles grew more intense, each encounter a testament to how much both had grown stronger. They fought across shattered islands, atop colossal marine vessels, and even in the heart of the New World, where the seas themselves seemed to rage in response to their conflict. Despite their rivalry, a strange camaraderie formed, born from shared dreams and the acknowledgement of each other's unbreakable spirit. However, their fierce competition was soon overshadowed by a greater threat: Rocks. His ambition was unlike any other, not content with ruling the seas, but determined to become the king of the world. Rocks was a force of chaos, his actions driven by an insatiable hunger for power and a deep-rooted hatred for the celestial dragons and the oppressive world government. Rocks commanded a crew of monsters, individuals whose names would later become legends themselves, Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido among them. Despite their clashing egos and lack of camaraderie, they were united under Rock's iron will, their combined strength a force capable of toppling nations. The God Valley incident became the turning point, where Rocks launched an assault that shook the very foundations of the world. His target was the celestial dragons, and his rampage left a trail of devastation in its wake. A war would take place against this great pirate. The God Valley incident was etched into history not just for the bloodshed and chaos that unfolded, but for the monumental clash of legends that reshaped the world. The native hunting competition, a grotesque display of cruelty by the celestial dragons, turned the island into a battleground unlike any other. The local population and enslaved individuals were to be hunted for sport, their lives deemed insignificant beneath the feet of the so-called gods. At the center of this barbaric spectacle stood Figureland Garling, supreme commander of the gods' knights, whose blade had already claimed the life of the island's king, solidifying his status as the champion of God Valley. But fate had woven a different story for this cursed land. The Rocks pirates, led by the infamous Rocks, descended upon God Valley with a singular ambition: to annihilate the celestial dragons and seize control of the world. His crew brought with them anarchy and destruction. The island quaked under their might, and the sky itself darkened as if mourning the atrocities committed. And Luffy, too, became a part of this incident. Amidst this storm of violence, unexpected alliances formed. Luffy, now a formidable pirate with a reputation as fierce as his will, found himself fighting alongside his brother Garp and his rival Gol D. Roger. Their combined presence turned the tide of battle into something the world had never seen before. Luffy's Gear 5 abilities clashed with the raw power of Rock's commanders, his fists stretching and twisting with impossible force, fueled by the flames of his awakened haki. Roger, wielding his blade imbued with supreme haki, carved through the chaos, while Garp's monstrous strength shattered the earth beneath his fists. The battlefield was a maelstrom of power. Luffy engaged Kaido, their clash shaking the heavens as his rubber form contorted around Kaido's monstrous strikes. Meanwhile, Roger dueled Whitebeard in a battle of titanic proportions, their conqueror's haki splitting the skies apart. Garp faced off against Big Mom, their brutal exchanges leaving craters where they stood. Other pirates joined the fray, but the trio's conqueror's haki intertwined, creating shockwaves that ripped through the battlefield, scattering even the most powerful combatants. As the battle raged, Roger, Silvers Rayleigh, and Scopper Gaben stumbled upon a hidden chamber amidst the ruins, a chest containing a baby with striking red hair. It was Shanks, the son of Figureland Garling, though whether he was born on God Valley or brought there remained a mystery. Without hesitation, Roger took the child, a decision that would ripple through the future in ways none of them could foresee. After defeating the major players of the Rocks pirates, the final clash with Rocks began. It was the confrontation with Rocks himself that defined the war. Rocks' aura was suffocating, his haki oppressive enough to bring even the strongest to their knees. His ambition radiated like a dark sun, threatening to consume everything in its path. He towered before them, his presence overwhelming. His eyes gleamed with madness, a wild grin splitting his face as dark tendrils of Conqueror's haki lashed out like serpents, splitting the air with violent force. The ground beneath him crumbled, unable to withstand the sheer intensity of his power. Without warning, Rocks lunged faster than any of them had anticipated. His fist, wreathed in black haki crackling like a storm, collided with Garp's raised arms. The impact sent shockwaves rippling outward, uprooting trees and shattering boulders like glass. chaos. Garp gritted his teeth, his muscles straining against the overwhelming force, but he held his ground, his own haki flaring like a beacon of defiance. Seizing the moment, Luffy launched himself into the fray, his body stretching unnaturally as he twisted through the air. Gear 5 had transformed him into a whirlwind of rubber and chaos, his fists as large as boulders, imbued with both his devil fruit's freedom and the raw, untamed power of his awakened haki. He slammed his fist down, a colossal punch that distorted the very air around it, aiming straight for Rock's exposed side. But Rock's was a monster beyond comprehension. He twisted effortlessly, catching Luffy's fist mid-air with a single hand. The force of Luffy's attack rippled through the ground, creating a fissure that split the earth beneath him. Rock's grin widened as he yanked Luffy forward, slamming him into the ground with such ferocity that the island trembled. Yet Luffy bounced back, his rubber form defying the damage, eyes blazing with unyielding spirit. Roger charged in next, his sword infused with Supreme King haki, the blade crackling like lightning. He moved with precision and ferocity, each swing a masterpiece of destruction aimed at Rox's defenses. Their blades clashed, haki-infused strikes creating bursts of light and sound that echoed across the battlefield. Roger's grin matched Rox's madness, the thrill of battle igniting the fire within him. Rox retaliated with savage abandon, his own haki dark as the void, his strikes wild yet calculated. He unleashed a barrage of attacks, forcing Roger to block and dodge with every ounce of his strength. The ground became a blur beneath them as they engaged in the deadly dance of titans, each clash sending out waves of destruction. Garp rejoined the fray, his fists wrapped in haki so dense they seemed like black iron. He landed a punch squarely into Rock's ribs, the impact causing a deafening boom that echoed like a cannon blast. Rock staggered, but only for a heartbeat. With a snarl, he lashed out, his fist connecting with Garp's face, sending him flying through several jagged rock formations. Luffy recovered, his body stretching unnaturally as he twisted around Rock's massive form. His fist ballooned in size, glowing with an ethereal energy that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of freedom itself. He unleashed a barrage of punches, each one faster, harder, and more chaotic than the last. Rox roared, his body enduring the onslaught, his haki clashing with Luffy's in a storm of black lightning and raw force. The battlefield became a vortex of destruction. Roger's blade carved through the chaos, Garp's fists shattered the very landscape, and Luffy's rubber form twisted reality with every strike. Rox, despite being battered and bloodied, fought like a demon, his will unbreakable, his ambition burning brighter than ever. But even monsters have limits. In a final, desperate gambit, the trio synchronized their assault. Roger's blade, glowing with Supreme King haki, slashed downward with the force of 1,000 storms. Garp's fist, a meteor of raw power, drove forward with unrelenting fury. And Luffy, his body stretched beyond comprehension, launched himself like a cannonball, his fist the size of a mountain, infused with every ounce of his spirit and determination. The three attacks collided with Rox simultaneously. The explosion was apocalyptic. The shockwave obliterated the surrounding terrain, the sky itself tearing apart as if reality couldn't contain the force of their combined will. When the dust settled, Rox lay defeated, his body broken, but his grin still etched on his face, a testament to the unyielding ambition that had driven him to challenge the world. The trio stood over him, battered, bloodied, but victorious. In the end, Rox fell, his dreams shattered beneath the weight of their combined might. The victory came at a cost. God Valley itself could not withstand the aftermath of their battle. The island crumbled, swallowed by the sea, vanishing from maps and memories alike, as if the world sought to erase the horrors that transpired there. In the years following the cataclysmic battle at God Valley, the world found itself forever altered. The echoes of that war reverberated across the seas, tales of the legendary clash between Rox and the combined might of Monkey D. Luffy, Gold D. Roger, and Monkey D. Garp spreading like wildfire. Despite the scars left behind by the conflict, the seas remained untamed, brimming with ambition, chaos, and the relentless pursuit of dreams. Years passed like fleeting shadows, but Luffy's legend only grew. His battles became tales whispered in the darkest corners of taverns and sung by bards in bustling ports. He challenged warlords, dismantled corrupt marine strongholds, and even crossed blades with the enigmatic god's knights, defying the very fabric of the world government's power. His mastery over his devil fruit evolved, his gear, five form becoming a force of nature that could bend reality itself, a dance of freedom and chaos that no enemy could withstand. Despite his overwhelming strength, Luffy never lost sight of his core belief, the pursuit of freedom, not just for himself, but for everyone chained by the world's unjust rules. His journey was more than a quest for power. It was a rebellion against the very notion of control. And soon, the final journey would begin. The Grand Line trembled under the weight of legends. Monkey D. Luffy and Gold D. Roger had conquered seas, overcome countless foes, and braved the greatest perils of the world. Their journey had led them to the last island, yet only one could claim the title of Pirate King. As the sun set on the golden shores of the island, Luffy and Roger stood across from each other atop a cliff overlooking the One Piece. The greatest treasure of them all lay within reach, but neither pirate moved toward it. They knew what had to be done. Their eyes met, and a shared grin spread across their faces. Roger called out to Luffy while resting his supreme-grade cutlass ace on his shoulder. He acknowledged how the two had come to reach this point, and that this would be where they decided who was better. Luffy stretched his arms, cracking his knuckles, skills. He told Roger that he was going to achieve his dream, and not even his rival would stand in his way. Lightning crackled in the air as both warriors released their advanced Conqueror's Haki, splitting the sky in two. The entire island quaked from the overwhelming force. Without hesitation, they lunged. Roger swung Ace with devastating force, sending a shockwave of pure Haki toward Luffy. In an instant, Luffy entered Gear 5, his body turning bright white as his laughter echoed through the battlefield. The attack struck, but Luffy's rubbery form stretched and absorbed the impact before he rebounded with a Gomu Gomu no Dawn rocket. His fist, imbued with the full might of his Haki, met Roger's sword midair, creating an explosion that shook the very island. Roger grinned and unleashed a flurry of slashes, each one coated in Supreme King Haki, capable of splitting mountains. Luffy dodged with cartoonish fluidity, his body twisting and stretching in impossible ways. Then, with a massive grin, he countered with Gomu Gomu no Dawn whip, his elongated legs slamming into Roger's side with the force of a tidal wave. Roger staggered, but planted his feet firmly. He wiped a trickle of blood from his mouth, laughing. He lunged forward, his sword infused with an enormous surge of Haki. Luffy met him head-on, both warriors exchanging titanic blows. The force of their clashes sent shockwaves across the sea, parting the clouds and sending whirlpools spiraling outward from the island. Neither held back. Roger's mastery of his blade and Haki matched Luffy's boundless creativity and rubbery resilience. Days passed as the two fought with all their might. Then came the decisive moment. Luffy inhaled deeply, his chest expanding to an enormous size. His massive Haki-coated fist loomed over Roger like a falling sun as he unleashed the Bajrang gun. Roger smiled, tightening his grip on Ace. He raised his sword, pouring every ounce of his strength into one final swing. Fist met blade in a clash that shattered the heavens. A moment of silence followed, then a thunderous explosion ripped through the battlefield, sending both warriors flying. The island trembled as the dust settled. Luffy stood tall, panting heavily, his body steaming from the exertion of Gear 5. Roger lay on one knee, his cutlass embedded in the ground. Roger looked up with ragged breaths as Luffy reached out his hand with a massive grin. He returned the grin and told Luffy that he had won. He was now the king of the pirates. They started laughing as their crews gathered around, and Roger proclaimed that they would call the island Laugh Tale. As the dawn broke over Laugh Tale, the legend of Monkey D. Luffy was written into history. With their battle behind them, their eyes caught sight of an ancient mural carved into the stone wall nearby. Below it, words were inscribed in a language long forgotten, but Odin, with his keen understanding, read them aloud. On Earth there was flame. Mankind, overtaken by desire, touched upon the forbidden sun. The enslaved prayed. The sun god appeared. The deity of Earth was enraged. Together with the serpent of Hellflame, they engulfed the world with death and darkness. They could not be met again. In emptiness there is breath. The deity of the forest dispatched demons. The sun did nothing but spread seeds of war. The people of the half moon saw a dream. The people of the moon saw a dream. Men became gods after slaying the sun. The deity of the sea rampaged. They can't be met again. In chaos there is void. The troubled shadow remembers the promised day and listens to the sound of the fragmented moon. The sun god dances and laughs, leading the world to its end. The sun will return, and so comes a new morning. They will meet again. Odin's voice grew solemn as he finished. Luffy stood frozen, absorbing the words. Then realization dawned upon him. Luffy muttered, his grin creeping back, saying that if the sun had to rise again, then someone had to carry it forward. Roger chuckled, realizing that Luffy's adventure still hadn't ended. He would need to pass the torch to the next warrior of liberation. They confided in each other, and Roger promised Luffy that he would bring about a great age of pirates to help Luffy achieve his new goal. The two legends laughed together as the wind carried their voices across the seas. And so, Luffy's greatest journey began, not to claim a throne, but to pass on the will of freedom to the next generation. Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button for more One Piece videos.